All right, In Transit today takes a look at the taxi industry, and perhaps we could call it the revenge of the taxi industry. Over a decade since Uber's arrival in Montreal, and what a sea change that arrival was, the taxi industry is adjusting by offering discounts in their own apps. And I tell you from experience, that could also mean getting a more affordable ride. I've mentioned this before on the show. You know, sometimes, maybe now we've got this sort of instinct reaction, open up an Uber app, just press on the order the ride without looking to see what the other alternatives are. And there have been situations, you know, I've been at the airport and Uber wants $90 to do a trip that you can get done in a taxi for half that price, for $50, right? So there are instances where taxis are coming out on top. Let's talk about the changes in the taxi industry with George Boussios, who's head of Taxi Champlain. George, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Elias. Thank you for having me back.
You know I've been screaming for a long time for you guys to get on board the app game and also get on board the, I don't know if it's dynamic pricing, but get on board the idea that maybe every ride shouldn't be the same price. Tell me about what you've done at Champlain Taxi now with your own app.
Well, I have to give you credit because every time I come on your radio station, you always talk about an app and about payment. So every time I present it, I say Elias Mackles wants it. So we've had our app for a while, but as you know, we've never had credit card payment the way that Uber has. It's integrated into their app, and we never had a rebate. So in the last month, we finally got the credit card payment integrated into our app, and you can just, order your taxi, and at the end of the ride, just accept the fare, press OK, rate the driver just the same way, and get an email or a text message confirming your payment. And we just about a week ago started offering. We can only offer rebates by law. Our hands are still tied. We're still regulated in certain ways that Uber isn't, but we can offer rebates through our app. And about a week ago, we started testing it out. And as much as people love the credit card payment, I think people enjoy the 10% off on their app calls. So if somebody wants to order a taxi and has to in calls, we can't offer that. We're not allowed. But if somebody orders a taxi through an app, we have the right to give a rebate, and we've decided to give a 10% rebate to our clients.
Okay, so now you have my attention. So if I order a Champlain taxi using your app, I will get 10% off the fare.
Yes.
So, obviously this brings us to the big battles, right? And what we've seen here in the last decade here. Sometimes my blood boils when I see the surge pricing that's charged by Uber in certain scenarios here. Is this another thing where maybe people have to sort of give the taxi industry another fair shake to see how they've developed over the last little bit?
Well, I've been saying it from day one. We need to be here because we need to face the facts that if we're not here, price surging will happen more often than it has now. Because, like you said, now you have a choice to take a taxi from the airport. But imagine we're not there anymore. So I've been saying that from day one. But I think in general, we've become, since COVID, prices have gone up. Everything's gone up, from grocery stores to gas. We'll drive 5 kilometers away to get 2 cents off on a liter of gas. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the way we're going right now. We're there. We have an app. We can give you a better price during a snowstorm, metro, like we've talked about before. Yeah. Our prices will always be the same. They will never be higher. They can be lower if you use our app, and we've adjusted to them being around here. And hopefully people, I can't tell people not to take Uber because it is cheaper a lot of the times, but we are there. We do offer you an option and probably a little bit better service, I would think, but that's debatable. And use our app and you'll get even a discount too. So I think it's a good thing for the taxi industry.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because you can get away, like we see this all the time. You can get away with charging more if you build that reputation that the service is always going to be at a certain level. And because I'll tell you this, Uber, it's hit and miss. Like Uber, sometimes you're like, my goodness, this was incredible. The driver had water and was, doing all these above and beyond things. But then sometimes you get an Uber and you're like, my goodness, this is not the same experience, right? So it's hit and miss. If you can if the taxi industry can say, okay, here's a baseline you'll always get. Now we can offer discounts. I don't know. I think it puts you in a better position.
But I'll be honest with you, Elias. Most of our drivers now are, because the older guys are more or less retired or given up. A lot of our drivers, I would say maybe half our fleet are ex-Uber drivers, or ex-Uber drivers. Because as we know, they've been fighting for, they're getting minimum wage. As a matter of fact, in Minnesota, I think last week, the Minnesota Council said that they have to follow the law and have to be minimum wage. And now Uber in Minnesota is threatened, and Lyft is threatening to leave. So a lot of these drivers, they want to go into the taxi industry. So we're taking as many as we can. We know that they do both because the law lets them, have a dome on and take off your dome and do an Uber. We are trying to give better service, so we're trying to be a little bit more professional. We do have the bus lane, we do have the taxi lane, so things like that do actually help in Montreal traffic. So we'll see how it goes. We're doing our best to compete. We know Lyft is coming as well. I don't know if that's going to affect us as much as it might affect Uber clientele and their business, but we're taking it day by day.
So this is a great question. So obviously the rumors that Lyft is coming, they're getting stronger and stronger. So I wonder how that plays out, because what that could do, and this is just me spitballing, correct me if you think I'm off base here. Now, like, Uber will have to pay their drivers more because, Lyft is going to offer a little bit more, at least at the start. So this could actually mean that fares on Uber actually get more expensive if they've got to pay drivers more.
Well, we could look at it that way, or they need to pay their drivers, because their drivers are leaving and their drivers are not happy. And when you say hit and miss, it's also because what kind of day they're having. I mean, if you're making money, you're in a good mood, and every time somebody walks into your car, you're saying good morning and hello and how are you. But if you know that you're making $5 an hour, you're not going to be in a good mood and you're not going to give good service. Now they can go either way. They can lower the prices. Uber can Lyft can come in and lower the prices, or if they do pay their drivers higher, obviously the consumer is going to end up paying. And at that point, if we become more or less the same price, then it'll be up to us to make sure our service is good, our service is competitive, and our cars are clean and new, and maybe a little bit of electric cars. We're starting to push the EVs and the plug-in hybrids, and people will make their choices. But I know when there's price surges, obviously everybody comes back to the taxi industry. So I think they do prefer the taxi industry, but at the end of the day, we need also to save money and see where we can cut.
And I have a listener, Sonia sends a question on the text line and says, are we able to see how much the ride would cost before we book it on the app? And I just want to point out, I have the app, I've used it, and yes, you can. So I'm seeing...
You get an estimation, yeah.
Yeah,
when you get in, the meter will go on. The meter has to go on by law, and then the driver will, if it says $10 on the meter, there's a pop-up box on the tablet. Once the meter shuts up, he will put $10. It will give the rebate to the driver, and you'll get it on your text and an email.
Okay, great. Let me ask you one thing here that I think is probably getting your attention. In Australia, get a load of this. There was a class action lawsuit against Uber in Australia, and now the judgment is in. Uber has to pay $272 million to Australian taxi operators. It's one of the biggest class action lawsuit results in Australian history. Do you have a class action lawsuit going up against Uber as well, right?
That's great news, actually. When I read that today, that really was great news because I guess from Law and Order precedent. So we do have a class action suit. I think we're in the 6th or 7th year. And when I read that, that could only give us hope here that the same thing will happen here in the near future, because there are, they were saying 500,000. Our permits weren't worth 500,000, but they were over 200, 250 in some areas, maybe even 300. And we got nothing for them. We lost them. They took it. The government gave us, peanuts compared to what they were worth. And we've said it all along. A lot of older people lost everything because that was their retirement, and they lost everything. So if this sets a precedent that Uber we can actually do something in court, that's going to be a great news for a lot of older drivers.
And George, just to get the app, I go to the App Store, I search Champlain Taxi, and boom, it pops right up, right?
You can put your credit card. It's a pretty safe platform. You put your credit card, and you can pay by credit card, or if not, you just want to pay cash, you'll get it on your phone. the 10% rebate. So, it's going to help. I think everybody's looking to save a buck, and taxis are a luxury. We know that. Uber right now isn't a luxury because it's so cheap. And this is another thing I wanted to talk about. We talk about STM doing cutbacks and all that. Uber hasn't only affected us in the taxi industry. It's affected public transportation as well.
So
because
true.
If four kids get into my kid, when we were growing up, Elias, we never took a taxi. We took a bus. But now when you got four teenagers all giving $3 in to go into an Uber because it's $15 to go downtown, STM suffers, REM suffers, traffic, environment. So there's a lot of things that Uber brings that isn't good for society, but we are saving $1, and I think we can have a blind eye to that.
That is a very big point there. The effect of cheap Ubers on public transit can't be overstated. Thanks so much, George. Be well.
Thank you for having me, Elias. I appreciate it. Congratulations on your son.
Oh, thank you so much. That's George Boussios right there. He is the head of Taxi Champlain.